with an aroma can do. Brighter day for me and you. The best part of waking up is in your cup.
Actually, Lucy, my trouble is Christmas. I just don't understand it. Instead of feeling happy, I feel sort of let down.
I know how you feel about all this Christmas business, getting depressed and all that. It happens to me every year.
This holiday season, every time you purchase a 12-ounce Starbucks coffee, a portion of the proceeds will be given to the Penny Foundation, the world's premier charity dedicated to helping down-on-their-luck content creators pay their daily bills.
I need that money. I really do. I need that money. I need my bills, the electric bill, the internet bill.
So stop by your local Starbucks today and help send some Penny their way.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to 12 days of Snoutmas. I am your host GTG, and let's get right into it. Ladies and gentlemen, the hot topic, excuse me, if you will, of the hour is Phil Burnell, DSP Darkside Phil, is not only going to lose his house or lose his condo, I should say, in Connecticut, but he's also being sued for $100,000+. Amazing stuff. So, before we get into that, there's a few thank yous that are in order. One goes to Chio18 for making the background that you see there for Hard Snorts Gin and Tonic. Oh boy. So thank you to Chio18 for that. Second one goes to The Outsider, who actually hit us up on Twitter, gave us the 411, hence the reason why we're here. So we very much appreciate it. Shouts out to Outsider. Third person is the reason why the whole DSP community, if you will, is in an uproar in the first place. He was the one who actually broke the story. And that's a friend of ours, Agent Proper of the DIA, as well as some of the my compatriots, if you will, some of the other agents at the DIA actually found all this and they brought it all together. And Agent Proper has published it. And it's this by far is probably I think this is the high point, not even the high point. I think this is probably the most important thing that's happened all year as it pertains to the DSP universe or the Goutopian universe, or however you want to word it. So big ups to Agent Proper of the DIA, as well as the agents of the DIA for breaking the story. Ladies and gentlemen, this is wild. Now, if you guys have followed me for any period of time, you've heard me plenty of times say that, Phil keeps messing up. He's going to lose his house in Washington. And in a lot of ways, he deserves to, because of how he misappropriated everything, to be perfectly honest with you. Let me go ahead and throw this up there for you. Ladies and gentlemen, you can find this information on Kiwi Farms. You can find it on Twitter. You can find it on Reddit. Agent Proper has been very diligent with this information. If I remember to, I will leave the link to Kiwi Farms, the actual thread itself that the Agent Proper had started, in the description. You can go there. You can read all the pages yourself. There's some great conversation in there, and there's a lot of brainstorming going on, and for very good reason. Ladies and gentlemen, how is it that an individual who's made $100,000 a year for at least the last, out of his illustrious 12-year legacy, 10-year legacy, really, who's made, let's say, $100,000 over the span of 10 years, $100,000 or more, I should say. How is it that he's in debt $100,000 to a bank in Connecticut, excuse me, on a condominium that he's been paying on for the last 8 to 10 years and only recently stopped paying on? So let's reword that last part. How is someone in debt $100,000 on a condominium that they originally bought for $128,000, and they've been paying on it, allegedly, each and every month for the last, like I said, 8 to 10 years, and yet they still owe $100,000 plus on it, before penalties. How does that happen? And not only that, ladies and gentlemen, let's go ahead and delve into the lore when it comes to the whole situation with paying. He has begged for money multiple times, if you think about it, really every month, to help cover his condominium, the payment of the condo in Connecticut. He had an aunt, excuse me, or an aunt, however you want to word it, who lived there for a little while. And she was giving Phil money. Now, granted, she wasn't giving him the whole balance, right, for the mortgages each month, but she gave him, a couple $100. It makes it a little bit easier on him. So how is it that he lived in that condominium for 4 years, maybe even 5 years, right? And then he had an aunt that lived there for maybe 2, and then he allegedly was still paying on it up until April or May of this year, and now all of a sudden he owes $100,000 plus on it. That don't make no sense, ladies and gentlemen. Now let's talk a little bit about his actual judicial problems that are going to come with this. At current, Phil has some documentation that's being mailed to him. It's actually in transit. It's been on the way to Phil for the last 3 weeks, which is kind of strange in itself. But we'll figure that out when we figure that out. But when that gets to him, it's basically going to lay out what the situation is, in that he's going to be expected to show up in court. If he doesn't, then the current bank that owns his piece, who owns his condo basically, which is Mid-Florida Bank, will win it outright. In turn, they're going to come after Phil with everything that they have, because, as I've said before, ladies and gentlemen, I'll say it again, the bank always wins. The bank always wins. And so just because they have the condo doesn't mean that they're going to pass up on any other monies and or damages and or whatever else they can recoup as it pertains to capital. Here's where things get even more interesting. Phil, at least as far as we know, doesn't have $100,000 sitting around somewhere. His parents, who allegedly, according to Phil, has paid off everything that they own, I don't think they have $100,000 plus anywhere. If they do come after Phil, and they will, it's inevitable that they're going to come after him, they're going to take Phil's house. If Phil doesn't have $100,000 plus in equity in his home to put up, they're going to just take his house outright. Period. And as much as Mr. and Mrs. Burnell may love Phil, they're not going to lose his house, or they're not going to lose their house to save one of his 2 houses or condos, whatever. They're not going to do that. So Phil has pegged himself really into this corner. I was trying to think of something else, but whatever. He's pegged himself into this corner in such a way that there is no coming out. He's there, and he's stuck. Like, he's really, really stuck. And now, with that being said, the only thing we can really depend on is what, ladies and gentlemen? Pay piggies. And not even the pay piggies are enough, really. We need whales. And I don't mean one whale. We need whales. Because if any of you were going to say, oh, well, what about Golden Colts? Well, Golden Colts, I don't think he's flaunting that type of loot. Because if not, he would have helped Phil out a long time ago with bigger donations. The next person you guys would think is Planet Jeff. Planet Jeff isn't going to cough up all of his deceased wife's insurance money to bail Phil out. Phil is in it for, and as you're going to see in the documentation that's flashing up, also on top of that, by the way, these peoples, right, are expecting, not even need, they're expecting $15,000 from Phil, paid yesterday. Actually, you see it right here. They expect $15,000 from him, and they expecting that yesterday. Because if you look at some of the documents here, they say November 15th, and then the return date is December 10th. So he's had this hanging over his head since last month, which kind of explains why his attitude has been the way it is. If Phil don't come up with that 15 grand, he's definitely going to have issues. But Phil, in actuality, needs about 20 grand, probably. I'd say 20 grand is not going to help all of his problems, but it'll be at least get this $15,000 from over his head with a little bit of wiggle room. Phil may or may not have that. Phil's parents may or may not have that, but Phil needs to come up with that on top of the 100,000 plus he still owe. And ladies and gentlemen, this to some degree could have been avoided. Do you guys remember only a few months ago when Phil was talking about he was working with somebody in Connecticut to get, actually it might have been after he got married. So we're talking about a few months ago, back, May, June-ish, I guess. Phil said that he was talking to somebody about get something happening with his property, whether it was going to be rented or even sold. And Phil was saying that the guy was calling him and he didn't want him to call him. He wanted him to email him. Now, granted, any rational individual who owes 100,000 plus on a condo would be trying to sell it quick, fast, and in a hurry. A phone call's never hurt anybody. But then again, if we jump to recent lore, ladies and gentlemen, this is the same idiot who had the nerve to say, if John wanted to talk to me, I was sending him texts all the time. Who cares? Yeah, he said I should call him, but what's the difference? In this modern era, you know what I'm saying? A text message and a call are the exact same thing. Shit, I didn't talk to Catherine, or Kat, at all the whole time we were dating. The whole time we were dating up until she moved there, we only text each other. Which, obviously we don't want Subaru Man to, catch on to what the plot was beforehand, so obviously, but there you go. Now, that right there in itself is already very antisocial, obviously, but also it shows a disconnect that he has. It also may even in a lot of ways show a type of fear, or maybe not even fear, maybe, well, it could be fear, but an anxiety, and some type of anxiety that he has with actually conversating with people. You know what I'm saying? When he's talking to his stream chat, for example, there are a bunch of faceless people that are behind text. You know what I'm saying? He doesn't have to address an actual person. He doesn't have to listen to an actual person. He only has to address the text that he reads. And if you notice, I know a lot of you have, he twists, let's not say twist, he flips a lot of people's dialogue, a lot of their sentences and stuff like that too. Have you guys ever noticed that? A lot of people thought he was doing it just to be an asshole, but I think he does that on purpose to make it more comfortable and make it more palatable for himself. It's an interesting, it's an interesting type of behavior. With that being said, it also, at least for me, it tells me that we have an individual who he's just that far out of touch with reality. For one, you're still going to take days off knowing that you owe this much money. And you're definitely going to take your day off this week. And then you're going to take off 2 days back to back next week, despite the fact that you know that you owe this money. On top of that, let's talk about what he said today. He said that, I only need you guys to give me $2,000. Anything else that anybody tells you is an absolute lie. And the $2,000 are strictly going to my taxes, nothing else. So this whole other stuff that's floating around by these detractors, these brain dead idiots, don't listen to any of it because it's not true. Why the hell do you not just come out and tell these people what the deal is? Like, we already know. You've been banning people for the last, since the information came out, which came out early yesterday. At the time you're hearing it, it's going to be early yesterday. So this information has been floating for well over 24 hours. You've banned people for bringing up the foreclosure. Quick. He was quick to ban people in his chat last night for that, and probably today. You're not hiding nothing, bruh. And on top of that, now you're just giving, now all those people who may have theorized that he has a bank account in the Cayman Islands or he's stashing money somewhere or whatever, all this just fuels it. Now most of you are going to be like, come on GTG, how is it that he's going to say that, how is it that he owes 100,000 plus, but he's only asking for 2? Why would people still think he's sitting on additional money? Well, that's actually a very good question. Do you guys remember when earlier this year, I believe, when some information came out that his condo, that he had missed some payments early on the not early, it might not have been early this year, it might have been late last year. It was either early this year or late last year, where information came out that he was having there was some problems with the condo, and that the bank was talking about seizing it and putting it on the market, so on and so forth. And then all of a sudden, because, you know, it was something like $10,000 was owed or some shit like that. And then all of a sudden, as soon as the detractors got the information and word was starting to get around on Twitter and Kiwi Farms and some other places, all of a sudden the 10,000 or 15,000 or whatever it was, all of a sudden it was paid. All of a sudden the money showed up. Do you remember the whole situation with the property tax that was talked about by James the Lesser early on, only a few months ago? Same concept. As soon as that information came out, all of a sudden it got paid. You know what I mean? It's very, very interesting how when these big money type of situations come around, all of a sudden the money pops up for it. Those are the two best examples that I can give you at the moment. There's something very peculiar about this situation. And with that being, sorry about that. And with that being said, if he ends up digging himself into some hole to prove a point, he's only going to screw himself, nobody else. He has to realize that. If he don't, it's going to come back to haunt him. Sorry about that. With that being said, we'll have to kind of just wait and see how it all plays itself out. Here, give me just a second, by the way. Alright, sorry about that, guys. Sorry about that, guys. That was actually kind of important. Okay, so like I said, this whole money situation is going to be problematic, and he's trying to act like he's nonchalant about it, but it's very obvious because over the last, I'd say the last couple of weeks, but certainly over the last couple of months, people have noticed it. You're seeing this shift in his behavior. The games are becoming more and more boring. He's losing less and less interest in them, he's losing interest in them. He has less and less tolerance for them. He's slowly but surely cracking up. You know what I'm saying? And he's wanting to do more and more of these boomer segments, as Mr. Huffstuff has elegantly put it, dark after dark. And if you think about it, it's just like what Almighty Tevin, praise be, talks about when it comes to the day streams or the pre-streams. He treats them like they're therapy sessions. The boomer stream at the end is no different. It's a therapy session on top of trying to solicitate more donations, more contributions. He's played his cards and he's lost. Or he's losing, if you will. Now, if any of you guys have followed DSP for any length of time, you know that he's got like the devil's luck or some shit, and eventually, you know, and so it's not a surprise if someone comes out of the woodworks to save his ass. It's just kind of how it happens. I personally, he can't be saved this time around. Like, there's nobody who is family related who's gonna come out their pocket with $100,000 to give to Dark Side Phil. He would forget about you in a couple of months afterwards anyway. You know what I mean? So that's the first thing. And then there's a thread on the King of Hate forums that's knee deep in the conspiracies about why all this is going on and why Phil isn't being transparent with them and this, that, and the third. And as Almighty Tevin had said about that earlier, praise be, it's more, I don't think Phil can actually delete it because of all the responses to it. And by now, you know, people, the detractors, critics, haters, and everybody else are probably already archived those pages. So there ain't no going back anyway. There's no helping this. Ladies and gentlemen, this, if nothing else, is the closest we've ever seen to Phil's demise. This is one of the closest moments to that. He has walked the razor's edge. He has survived on the good graces of other people for a very, very long time. And it may very well be time to pay the piper. But either which way, this is probably the closest he's ever come. Because trust me, that condo in Connecticut is very much going to be the downfall of his life in Seattle. And you would think someone of his intellectual level, as he likes to boast about it and shit, and his business acumen would know that, would realize that. The fact that he hasn't is insane. And he deserves to get spanked. With that being the case, he deserves to get spanked. It's the spanking it's the whooping that should have came to him years ago. He's been very, very fortunate, resilient, lucky. Well, really fortunate and lucky. Resilient is that's a strong word for me to be applying to film. You know what I'm saying? He's been very lucky. And luck don't save everybody. Luck don't last forever. And he's sitting here, has all this money over his head, knowing damn well, and he was talking about he has all this money over his head. He has all these potential problems that could screw him, and if, as some people are speculating, that his parents helped him co-sign on both the condo as well as his house/estate in Washington, his parents are going to go down too. Possibly. And are any of us surprised that Phil Burnell wouldn't use his mother and father to break his fall? They were sick and dying, ladies and gentlemen, in February and March of this year. By April, they were dying, poor choice of words on his part, they were dying to see Catherine. By, August, September, they're sitting here buying Jasper all these, cat products and stuff. And sending props to for Phil's streams. Seems really weird, don't it? Seems really odd that we had two individuals who were sick and dying to then paying for a wedding as well as his taxes, and then all of a sudden they're buying peripherals for Jasper and buying props for Phil's streams that they don't watch. That don't seem awkward? That don't seem a bit strange and out of characteristic? That two people, or one person, really his mother, who doesn't watch any of his content at all, never has had any want to do so, from his words, is now are buying props for him? That seems strange. Either which way. As of right now, he's basically in full denial mode about anything. He just needs the $2,000 for the end of the year taxes. He's holding a week-long tips goal in the hopes of obtaining that $2,000, despite the fact that he actually said earlier today that he didn't think that they were going to hit the goal, but they're going to try. The goal is going to go from Monday to Monday, by the way. I've given you my opinion. He's gotten very lucky. He's been very, very fortunate. And if he had done what he was supposed to back in Connecticut, all those years that he was making all that crazy money, that condo could have been paid for before he left with Panda to come to Washington. It could have been paid for. And would he have had to sell it at a loss? Sure. He bought the condo for $128,000. Supposedly he was finessed into it. There was a interview that They Call Me Tex did with a former friend of Phil's who said that he basically got played into that condo. But anyway, $128,000 when he bought it. He says people are saying, as well as Phil saying, that the condo is only worth $70,000. So he was going to take a loss on it either which way. But you would rather take a loss, you know what I'm saying, and still walk away and just walk away from it after that, than to have it $100,000 plus over your head, and you're going to lose ownership of that, and you're possibly going to lose your house in Washington. Which one do you guys think is the better alternative? Anyway, so let's go over some quick notes, if you will, that was taken, and then I'm not going to read everything because I want to save some of this for the Snort report that'll come later on down the line. But let's go ahead and let's see here. What do we want to go over? All right. So it says right here, Okay, a month or two ago, Mid First Bank, which is the bank that currently bought Phil's mortgage from the original lender, right? Let's see. They were the ones who now own the condominium. Those are the people who are taking him to court to get this money. Let's see here. It says that for some, okay, in some cases of foreclosure, it usually takes 3 to 6 months for the homeowner to be considered delinquent or stop paying, and then we start getting into some of the processes here. If he isn't willing, if they are not willing, I should say, to actually make a compromise, which means that back in April, was it? Yeah, it was April, right? It was like right after he came back from. No, was it before? Yeah, it was right after he got married and came back. He said that, you remember when he had the conversation with his mother about his 10-year plan, and which was, as I said, he was just planning on waiting until they either die out, meaning his parents, or he had enough equity in his home to cover all of his credit card debt on top of, the house in Connecticut. Speaking of which, that's another thing too that you guys have to keep in mind. There are still credit card bills. There are still business loans that he took out when Panda was still around. All of that's still floating above Phil's head too. Now, I think he said earlier this year, though, right around the time of the marriage thing, I think he said that those loans are almost done and paid for. So I'll throw that out there just for clarification's sake, but that just to give you guys an idea of what's still hanging. Let's see here. So back in April, if it was April, when he said that he wasn't going to pay them anymore, he wasn't playing. The thing is he should have came up with a better plan than that. A much better plan. Let's see here. Oh, another fact of it, as I had spoken about over in the Snoutmas video. How is it that you've had this condo for 8 or 9 years at $1,200 or $1,500 a month? Right, as for his mortgage plus homeowners association fees and whatever. How is it that you've been paying $1,200 to $1,500 a month every month for 9 years, and that condo's not paid off? What did you do with all of that money? Like, what I'm saying? Like, there's no reason why he shouldn't own that condo outright or almost outright. What the hell has he been doing if he just stopped paying on that condo back in April? Why isn't that condo paid off already? Silly motherfucker. Let's see here. We talked about the letter that's being mailed to him. It's taken 3 weeks, by the way, to get to him, which is strange. But like I said, you can read Kiwi Farms more. A lot of this gets flushed out in there in people's theories. And we talked about how the condo's only worth $70,000, despite the fact that he owes he owes 100,160 and sorry, he owes 100,000 he owes $100,671. Sorry, I don't even know why I was making that shit seem silly. Now that's before penalties and fees, by the way. So what the hell? Yet again, where'd the money go? Where did the money go? And he's been misappropriating that money for a while. Now, let's get into some of my closing arguments, and then we can call a spade a spade. Actually, here, let me take this off screen. You guys, I've had that flash in front of you guys long enough. All right, that and this background is fucking beautiful, so you guys should definitely be looking at that. What does Catherine think of all this, if Catherine even knows? That's the first theory. Or that's the first question I have, I should say. Do you think Catherine knows about what's going on? If she doesn't, what do you think she's going to do when she finds out that she ain't married? Well, she obviously knew he was a fuck up when she married him. At least you would think she would have known that. But now that same fuck up is in so much debt that now what little, I won't even call it a happy home, but her current residence is up for grabs. And she can't go back to, well, I would think she couldn't go back to Subaru guy. So unless, all of our joking aside, unless she has someone else on the side, right? She has another rebound, Phil's screwed. I mean, she's kind of stuck with this. So what's she gonna do? Move back home? Or move back with Phil and whatnot and his parents and try to carve out a life for herself? Is she gonna move back to Michigan and with her family? What's she gonna? I mean, you know what I'm saying? I don't think I mean, it's possible yet again she might be like Panda and have that type of, or that level of resilience, but we don't know that for sure. So what is she going to do? And then Phil himself is stuck in the worst possible place. You know what I mean? So it's a mess. And like I said, the best thing to do in this situation is to let it play out. Let the pressure build up on him, and we'll just see how he reacts. It's like an egg. Eventually he'll crack. Eventually. You're doing a week-long sub goal for $2,000. And I think a lot of people over there are smart enough to realize the longer they draw this out, the more than likely they're going to get the information that they want. If they don't know that, they know it now. And that should be the plan. So eventually we're going to find out. Eventually we're going to find out. So, you know, he can go ahead and try to keep his little secrets, you know what I'm saying? Like some high school girl all he want. But eventually he going to lose. He was better off laying all his cards on the table now, so those who are sympathetic to him, the few people that are, what can come through for him on the clutch. But he's stupid, you see. He too busy worried about Tevin. He too busy worried about all these other people that yet again, any opportunities that he has to fix this or potentially try to fix it, he's squandering it away. But because he has a business degree. And he's just that smart. Just in case you guys didn't know. So, there you go. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for listening in. I very much appreciate it. The 12 days of this is part of the 12 days of Snoutmas. I'll see you guys for tomorrow's episode, as usual, and whatnot, keeping into the 12-day tradition. I apologize for this being late or early. It depends on which one comes out first. But thank you very much for listening in and whatnot. I'll wait to hear what some of your opinions are as it lays out, and then, like I said, I'll do a snort report later on down the line, where I'll try to get as much of the information as possible, and we'll talk about it all there. We'll try to lay out the majority of the story by then. Everybody will be caught up by then, which makes the conversation, you know, it'll flush the conversation out even more. And just in case I miss anything, the audience can basically fill in the blanks, and we'll find out what happens between now and the end of the year. You know what I mean? Yet again, shouts out to Agent Proper of the DIA. Just in case you guys don't know, he's also working on this year's top 10 worst moments. This is definitely going to be in it, so look out for that. I think he was aiming for the end of this month, which is December, but he might push it till later on. We'll have to wait and see. But congratulations to him on breaking the story. Congratulations to the DIA. And, you know, well, you know how that works. I'm part of the DIA, so most of you guys are part of the DIA. If you're not, please go over there. Please subscribe. There are big things going on. There are people working very diligently behind the scenes. Support them. Support them. That's all I can say. Thank you yet again to Chio18 for the background. Thank you to James the Lesser. Thank you to all of you guys, you know what I mean, for spending on the road to the Snoutmas and / Christmas, for spending that here with us at GTG Network and Productions. We very much appreciate it. Alright guys, take care of yourselves. I'll see you guys tomorrow with sure something good, hopefully. I don't know. I'll know when you guys know. Later guys. Happy holidays.